The Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Purdy Insurance and MacTac. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance and MacTac. Now, here's Steve Jones.
This opening half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, all these insurance needs. I don't know about you, but it sure makes my life easier when I go to Purdy Insurance and they sit down and they said, you know what, we got you. Don't worry, Steve, we got you. And yeah. And they do everything they can to save you money because customer service means everything to them. And I got to attest to the customer service. And they'll get back to me and say, hey, by the way, next year on your insurance coverage, you know, we're going to look out for X, Y, and Z. We want to make sure that you know this as to what's covered, what might have a price increase, something. Okay? They do that all the time. They're really terrific at it. It's all at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get into why I was laughing. I will just tip you off that Matt Campbell did something today that was very much like how I would do it. And it was something, and I mentioned to him on Saturday, and he did it today. I'm not going to say what it is. Okay? And I apologize because I apologize for that to the audience. I mean, but when I saw I went, oh, well, that's what I would have done. And we had just talked about this the other day. I'm like, okay. All right. So let's get to the Big Ten because we are embroiled, as we all know. I think everybody understands it. In certain terms, we're embroiled in a mess. And Greg Sankey has said, hey, look, he's the SEC commissioner. We don't want to be involved in pros playing. He has said that. The problem is, for him, it's one thing for him to say it, but he can't get his membership, LSU, to go along with it. So now the Big Ten is set to pass a rule today that's going to stop players from returning from the NFL to play at one of its schools. If a player is declared for the NFL draft and did not withdraw, appeared on an NFL roster, or signed a contract with a pro league, they cannot be on a Big Ten roster. As we all know, Xavier Harris, who played against Penn State at Ole Miss, is leaving the New Orleans Saints, and he's going to join LSU. Daquan Wright left the Cleveland camp. He's joining LSU. Wright and Harris both played for Kiffin at Ole Miss. And they're returning because a court order created havoc throughout the NCAA. The NCAA, in a statement, that court rulings that grant fifth-year eligibility have a destabilizing effect on college sports. Actually, no, the NCAA has a destabilizing effect on college sports. Fifth-year guys who are not in pro camps, right, should have been grandfathered in. It's your fault that you worded the rule so poorly. It's an excellent rule. The 5-for-5 rule is excellent. Not grandfathering the 2022 year group was so short-sighted on their part, they could have avoided how much money in legal fees if they'd just done that. Now they're in courts all over the place. Again, more legal fees, more waste of money that could have been put into student athletes instead of fighting them all the time. It's a waste of time, waste of money. The NCAA wastes so much money, right? And they lose so often in court. The NCAA said today, courts across the country granting relief to ineligible athletes who already had every opportunity to compete in college, sometimes without even having a hearing, are failing to appreciate the destabilizing effect their rulings are having on college sports. Now, where the NCAA is correct are people that were in pro camps that are now going back to college. They are correct there. I am with the NCAA on that all the way. All the way. That part I understand. If somebody's not in that category, they should be allowed to go. Okay? Stephen Daly was not drafted. Right? Did he go to OTAs with the team? Sure, but that's okay. That's nothing. All right? Kellen Wyatt was injured. He wasn't picked up by anybody. He's not even available probably till mid-October. Those guys should be allowed to go back to Indiana as fifth-year players. Jackson Kohler just signed with BYU. He should be allowed to do that. He was on a summer league team for the Utah Jazz. That's a summer league. I'm sorry, that's not. Okay? That's not a camp. It's not a train. Yes, you sign with a team. Yes, you're playing for a team, but it's a summer league. After that, they make a determination about who to invite to camp. But this thing about I'm in a pro camp, look, Chuck Noll, and it's funny because I gave Matt Campbell this exact quote earlier today. We were talking about this, and I said, Matt, Chuck Noll always had a saying. He said when a guy was getting close to retirement, it's time to get on with your life's work. And this part about going from an NFL camp, playing in NFL preseason games. Now, Wright did not play in games. He was banged up, but he was in camp. He was getting paid to be in camp. He signed a contract. And then others. Then there's R.J. Lewis. Oh. This is another beauty. Mike Rhodes, believe it or not, recruited R.J. out of high school. He eventually chose UMass, and he played against Penn State when he was at UMass. Up at the Mullins Center, did the game. He then transferred to St. John's, where he ended up being the Big East Player of the Year and then had a dud of an NCAA tournament. He did not play well. Well, he signs a two-way deal with the Utah Jazz. Now, what is a two-way deal? A two-way deal is, in the NBA, you have 17 roster spots. 15 are you're on the team every day. 2 spots, 16 and 17, are two-way contracts where there's a guaranteed number of games that you must be with the club's G League team, but there's also a guaranteed number of games that you have to be with the NBA team. And there's a different scale. When you're as a two-way player on a two-way contract, when you're playing in the G League, you are getting paid much more money than the average G League player. When you get to the NBA part, your salary then goes to the NBA minimum, which is how many games you're allowed to play divided by the NBA minimum. Okay? Which means you're a part of the 17-man roster. R.J. Lewis was a part of the 17-man roster. Then they cut him, and they went to the Celtics G League team, the one that plays up in Maine, up in Portland. Like, what are we doing here? I mean, what are we doing here? And he went to court, and yesterday won. Will Wade, I know you're shocked, was in the courtroom and hugged him. This is where we are, the absurdity of where we are with all of this. It has become comical. There is no way on earth that you can sit there and support this? It's unbelievable. It's unreal. Two-way contract, Utah Jazz. Traded by Utah Jazz to Celtics for George Niang, along with a 2027 second-round pick and a 2031 second-round pick. Celtics then waived him. Then they brought him back on an Exhibit 10 contract. Then the next day waived him again. I'm sorry, but this doesn't fly with me. Doesn't fly. Once you're done with college, you're done. We are not on the John Belushi Bluto plan at Faber. Faber, by the way, I think is Pitt's third game. But when you're done with college, you're done. Now, when they put the 5-year rule in, I can understand anybody who's not in the pro category should be allowed to go back. Now, Josh Reed, by the way, they're appealing. And I believe there's a decision that will be rendered in, let me think of the calendar here. 18, 20, 20. It should be 4 weeks from today. Okay? So by September 22nd, we'll know what his status is on their appeal. And it's not just him appealing, it's the 14 guys in the Cincinnati case that appealed. And it should be in 4 weeks. Should be by September 22nd we should know about him. But this is, I know there's money to be made. Well, okay, make your money. That's fine. But once you make a decision to move on with your life and go pro, you have now made a decision. Well, they didn't know they had this option and blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, is that the NCAA's fault? Sure it is. But then you signed a contract. You're now a pro. You've committed yourself to the Cleveland Browns. You've committed yourself to the New Orleans Saints. You've committed yourself to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, no, I'd rather be cut and go back. You'd rather be cut and go back? It's time to get on with your life's work, pal. If you are in a pro training camp, it's time to get on with your life's work. Now, again, do I include OTAs? No. Do I include Summer League? No. In this category. Moving forward on 5 for 5, the second you're done with 5, you are done. That's it. Now, let's face it, you're going to have somebody challenge it. You know they will. But the Big Ten might, let's see, as we know, Josh Reed, but Josh Reed didn't sign a contract with anybody. Josh Reed had no contract in place to play with anybody. None. So he's one of those guys where I'm sitting there, no pro contract. Nothing. And when you're sitting there and you look at the 5-year players, once you sign, you go to a training camp, you're done. See, now, I mean, after this, you play your 5 years, you're finished. And this has been, the NCAA has had some bad years. This is one of the worst years they can have. So ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips says they're going to discuss the topic this week. The Big Ten's voting on it today. Okay? Any player who's declared for the NFL draft and did not withdraw, appeared on an NFL roster, or signed a contract with a pro league cannot be on a Big Ten roster. Fine. Ohio State coach Ryan Day. He said, we do have to at least consider the possibility of adding eligible players who are cut from NFL rosters. But Day also said he thinks players who have gone to the NFL should not retain their college eligibility. Do I like anything about it? Absolutely not. Well, we got to do what's right for Ohio State. See, I'm sorry. If a guy is already in a pro training camp, I wouldn't touch him. I'm sorry. You've made your decision. You're done. Now, somebody else will take him. Lane, of course, will. Kiffin defended LSU's unprecedented moves, saying players are either going to play for you or they're going to play for someone else around the country. Let them play for someone else. Have some standards. The SEC, however, issued a statement. They emphasized its belief that athletes who choose to leave college athletics and sign professional contracts should not then be permitted to return to college competition. But Lane Kiffin doesn't care what they say, and Will Wade doesn't care what they say, and LSU doesn't care what they say. Unbelievable. Wright, by the way, still has to clear waivers before he can go back to LSU. That's the first time in my life where I said a guy had to clear NFL waivers before he could go back to college. Really? That is the first time in my life I've ever had to say that. Where you have to clear waivers to go back to college. You have so many people at the NCAA that have really very little real-world experience, especially at the top. You have a lot of bureaucrats at the top. And when you have bureaucrats at the top, you don't have any real-world experience. So you don't sit down in a conference room and discuss realistically unintended consequences. You just don't. And because you don't discuss unintended consequences, including what's happening right now, you run into these problems. You run into these problems. And right now you have what is amounting to a disgrace. They didn't grandfather the 2022 class in. They did not put in place, if you have signed a contract and you're in a training camp. And again, summer league basketball to me is not being in a training camp. So I would be like, okay, no, that's not a training camp. NBA training camps start next month. In fact, I think NBA training camps don't really start until the 1st of October. Right? Now, that's different. When you're in an NBA training camp, you're in camp. You're currently in an NFL training camp right now. So you've got guys, there were 15 guys in the Louisiana case, football-wise. Looks like 2 are going to LSU. And who knows what else is going to happen, because the Pyburn kid, for example, is sitting there with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He's been playing in games. And allegedly LSU would love to have him come back. And I don't care what Lane Kiffin says about, well, if we don't sign him, somebody else will. Well, guess what? Let him. I don't care. Let him. Have some standards. Some standards somewhere, sometime. Have some standards. I just think that this. Remember when the video game came out? And, it's EA Sports, it's in the game, college football, whatever it was, 2010, 2011. And I said, on the show, it was in 2012 I said this, like that one's a step too far, where the players aren't getting any money from it. The NCAA is just taking the money out and know what they're doing with it. And I said, that's going to lead to a lawsuit, and it did. This here on the opposite side, on the player side, we're right. And the other kid from the Saints are going to LSU from the pros. Now they've done it. It is, as far as I'm concerned, now that's a step too far. That is a step too far. Xavier Harris, I wanted to say. That is now a step too far. They've overstepped. There is nobody out there outside of Baton Rouge that's supporting these people. And this has nothing to do with a purist. I think I've been very open-ended about new rules, players getting money, being supportive of the 5-for-5 rule. I think I've been very open-ended about that. But there's a line in the sand, and this has been these guys have crossed the line, as has LSU. And R.J. Lewis should not be playing basketball at LSU. Signed a 2-way contract. He's the one that opted to go to the NBA draft. He's the one that signed a two-way contract with Utah. He's the one that signed a deal with the Celtics after he got traded. Cut me a break. Sometimes you take it a step too far. This time on the players' side, these guys took it a step too far.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance and MECTEC. Now, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour being brought to you by MECTEC Incorporated and Diversified Construction. MECTEC Incorporated is a professional engineering and land surveying company. They've been providing civil engineering and survey services since 1971. Diversified Construction offers a variety of construction services, varying from accessible home modifications to commercial and light industrial construction. Together, MECTEC and Diversified are proud to be the consumer choice in the Susquehanna Valley and beyond. All right. So, practice this morning, done. They had 2 days off. They took a Sunday off after the scrimmage. I think they were smart about how they scrimmaged on Saturday. They was very smart. I think they kept it to certain situations. They got to look at a lot of different people along the way. It doesn't mean some of the starters weren't out there. I mean, Darius Dixon did a little bit of work on Saturday. Rocco was out there, did his deal. I think you may have said that, like, well, Rocco didn't, do it. No, that's not true. Okay. It's always interesting. The guesswork on stuff like that when it's not watched. But then yesterday they were off because it was the first day of classes. So today they practiced, and Matt Campbell met with the media.
Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Everybody ready?
Yeah. Obviously, last year you had two permanent captains, and you had guys rotating. I believe it's some other years who are now captains. So what's your plan for this year? What did you learn about it now?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would tell you right now, I think we're still working through how we'll get to that point. At some point, we will have our team vote and really probably our coaching staff vote. And, last year's situation was unique because we had so many guys get votes that I felt like, that captain's thing, the team will always tell you where that's at. And so, I think when the time is right here, we'll have that obviously at some point here before the start of the season. I'd like to get through this week of practice and give the most clarity of who's practiced to the standard, who's lived to the standard, who understands the standard of everything we're doing in our football program, and then try to make the best decision for the betterment of the team. I think the really good thing is the strength of our senior class right now has done an unbelievable job leading. I had those guys at my house on Sunday night, and just as a sense of just a gratefulness of what our seniors have done, kind of merging this whole thing together and being great leaders for us. But we'll try to come to the best decision, and I am sure those votes will kind of give us the right pathway moving forward.
Last week you talked about maybe circling back about who camp MVPs might be. Can you clue us in there? And if you're not willing to go that far, maybe some of the people who have stood out.
Let me just talk about, and again, we've got today, tomorrow, and really kind of like Thursday, Friday, where we're still working through a lot. But, I just say offensively, when you look at guys that were consistently really good, Rocco's had a great camp. I thought he had a great day again Saturday. I thought Alex Mansky has improved, and there's still a lot of growth to continue to go. When you talk about the O-line, I think Malachi Goodman has had a phenomenal camp, and Trevor Burr, I think both those guys have been outstanding, and really that whole group, I think has done a really great job. I think Brock Rager's continued to get better. I think the right side of that line, it's been great to get Anthony Donka back. I thought, has had really quality reps in terms of what's going on there. When you talk tight ends, Ben, I thought, had a really good day on Saturday. He's been really consistent. It's the best version of Ben that we've got. I've talked about Rapp a lot. Rapp didn't do a whole lot last week, but I think just what he's done in camp has been really impressive. And then that running back room, James Peoples had another really good day on Saturday. I think Q continues to improve. I think Carson had an elite start to camp. He was back in practice today, so I think that part's really exciting for us. And then at the receiver room, I think Chase started slow, and I think he had a phenomenal day on Saturday. He had an unbelievable day again today. I think he's got great momentum. Brett, a guy that, again, has had a great start to camp. He was back out of practice today, so it was great to get him back. And then, I think Kobe Howard has done just a tremendous job of consistently showing up and got better every single day at camp. You go on the defensive side, I think AC Collins has been lights out. What he practices like, what he plays like, the consistency that he has given us just in general as a football team has been remarkable. I'm really proud of what he's done. Good to get Darius Dixon. He was back in practice today. I thought he had a great start, got a couple reps on Saturday, did a really great job today in practice, which was really good. I think on the D-line, Keanu and Ciale, man, those guys have had a remarkable last 8 days of practice. Even today, again, keep showing up and playing really good football. It'll be good to get some of those other guys back on the field. Dallas was back on the field a little bit today, so it'll be really good to get him back. That D-end, it's like the collection of groups. I think Yvonne really had a great week last week. I think Max Granville would be up for, what he did from the start of practice to where he is today. He's been remarkable. Caleb Bacon has been super impressive. I think that those three guys have really stuck out. Ike, we've asked a lot of and continues to move around. When you talk about a linebacker, Cooper, Ebel, and Tony, both those guys working through stuff, but I think those guys have improved. I think Cam Smith had a remarkable camp, and I thought Cale Brzezina, it's the best football I've watched Cale Brzezina play, really maybe in his career, and I go back to his freshman year. He started out lights out, had 14 tackles against Iowa as a true freshman, then got dinged up and has kind of worked through injuries, but finally healthy, and I really thought him and Cam had two guys that have had a great camp and just gotten better every day at linebacker. Safety, again, those guys have kind of fought through a lot. J-Mo's had a really good camp. Marcus Neal, we've moved those guys around. So I think those guys continue to prove. Jeremiah Cooper was at practice today, which is awesome. Got individual last week, got team reps today. Zion, working through a hand deal, but, back out on the football field as well today. And then I know I keep talking about Josiah Zayas, but I think he's had a great camp, and we've moved that guy around a lot. So, man, I'm going through all of it. I probably left some people out, but it's like consistency. It's not even MVP. It's like who keeps showing up, who's got the mental toughness to keep grinding. And those are some guys off the top of my head that just I feel like have done a really good job through the start of camp and where we're at now. And it's obviously the trick is, as you all know, there's a difference between being great in camp and being great on Saturday. The lights come on, the coaches are off the field, and now it's real. Who can continue to carry that momentum forward, and who can have a really great week of practice this week? I think it'll be really important for us.
Matt, you just listed off the entire roster. How comfortable are you guys feeling as a collective unit, given where everyone came from, over the last 12 months, feeling like this unit's come together before your first week?
Well, I think we've made remarkable strides from, like these pivotal turning points, start of spring ball to the end of spring ball. End of spring ball, what we did through the summer, and then obviously what we did through the summer to where we started in fall camp to where we ended. There has to be momentum. And there has to be growth. If you can't earn that, then you're in deep trouble. We've at least earned the right to have those things. But like I said, there's just a different animal and we know this, right? I mean, you guys have covered this enough that games come and it's different. It's different energy, it's different momentum, and that's why it's so critical to earn the right to have real confidence and real momentum going into those games, because we can script all this stuff in practice we want, but to do it in front of 110,000 people, to have real adversity, to have to lead through it and fight through it, all those check marks are just a check mark. It's just another step closer to preparing yourself to learn and grow. And I wish I could sit here and tell you we're going to be perfect on Saturdays. We know that. I know that's not true. How we respond to imperfect will define who we become. And I do think we're a closer football team to be ready to respond to those adversities than we were at the start of this.
Matt, you mentioned a couple of guys on the defensive side of the ball that have been working through some things, a little bit banged up. Has that affected any of the things you wanted to do in terms of installation or viewing guys in certain packages? How has that kind of just affected the plan there?
I think the positive, first of all, the positive is we've got to see so many other people step into critical roles. Can they do it? Can they perform? Can they play? Who can we count on? I think the biggest thing is we really didn't slow down installation because you just can't. And a lot of it was review from the spring and through the summer. But the reality of it is who is really ready to help and really ready to compete. And as we get these guys back, the challenge for us is getting them ready to be in game shape and see where we're at. And like I said, I think holistically, we're going to find out a lot more about ourselves as the season goes, and we're going to have to continue to adapt to our personnel as the season goes. And we're going to need all those people. Everybody's going to have to be a contributor. This is a long season, and the more guys we have ready to compete, the better we're going to be.
Matt, how did you guys as a staff identify the Texas State 2025 starting center as a guy that committed to come in, plug and play?
Yeah.
How did you get to that process? And can you just talk a little bit more about maybe the offseason he's had?
Yeah. Brock was one of the first guys we identified in the portal. And again, experience is big. Playing that position, I think our concern was having somebody that had game reps. Obviously, Dom played his senior year, or got to play the last game, but felt like it was really important. Our belief has always been building our football team from the inside out, and we want to be great down the middle. And, Brock's, not only his experience was positive, but the way he played. Then you research, man, he was great on the weightlifting team. He was a great wrestler. You saw how he was built when he came, and we just felt like, man, this guy's got a chance to be a really special football player. And so it's been great to watch him. I think the awesome thing for me is to see how bad he wants to be great, what his commitment. You see physically, I think he's put on 30 pounds. I think came here at 270. I think right now he's 305. So he almost 35 pounds, his commitment to keeping that weight on, and then his ability, and we're fortunate because we got some great O-line guys out there, it's even stealing, Wiz out there at times. You got some great people that have great experience, and the amount of time that guy puts into his craft to be great, it's being rewarded. Again, he's surrounded by some pretty good players too, which helps him from a quarterback communication standpoint, and two great guards that we think both those guys are tremendous players. But I think his growth has been pivotal for us to grow ourselves forward. Audrey?
Earlier, obviously much older guy, much more experience. What have you kind of learned about, what's the benefit of having that veteran presence who's been through a lot?
Well, I think two things, both on Ciali and Keanu, they've played in this system, right? I mean, Dylan was there. He was their defensive coordinator. They've been in the system. I think that was huge to get this thing started, one. I think, two, Ciali in general, you watched on his videotape, and you can remember he started his career on the offensive line, and then he flipped over to the defensive line the last 2 years at UCLA. And we had a phenomenal interior defensive lineman the last couple of years at Iowa State in Dominic Orange. And I think when I watched the video, I said, ooh, this guy's got the same qualities. He's big, he's got length, he's athletic. You can play the zero nose, he can play a shade, he can play a 2-eye. There's times he can get to a 3 technique, and he's got the athleticism to get out there and even win on the one-on-one pass rush. It's almost like, yes, he's older, but I feel like there was a rawness a little even in the spring. But what that guy's done in the last 8-9 days of practice, it's been remarkable. And again, it's a credit to getting in the best shape of his life. Physically, he looks different. I think he gives us a guy inside that, A, knows what's going on. He gives us a mature leader on our football team, but he also is a guy that feels like he's got something to prove. And it's been awesome to watch him continue to grow forward.
Matt, you mentioned and I don't need to go over individually, but where is your level of confidence or concern in you guys generating a consistent pass rush?
Yeah, I probably would have said a week ago, I would have probably been a little bit nervous about that. I would say, again, last week, it's nice to practice in the rain a little bit, and naturally you get some long yardage situations. I think, defensively, you feel like there was great growth last week where, winning on first down gives you real ability to get to pass rushing situations. And I thought that group had a really great week last week. And again, I think when you talk about Max, when you talk about Bake, when you talk about Ike, when you talk about Yvonne, when you talk about McPherson, like, these are guys that keep showing up in practice. And I think the cool thing with those guys is the amount of unique things they can do, right? They can slide inside, they can play outside. There's a lot of different things those guys can do. And I think that's been the really cool thing about not slowing up in terms of installation and continue to press forward. And now we got a chance to step back and say, okay, what are we going to be really good at to start the season? And then we can grow ourselves forward again as the season goes. But I think that group's got a chance to do some really positive things for us. And again, I think when you look at just that front seven in general, there's some guys that have the ability to put great pressure on the quarterback at times and are certainly really athletic and can do different things.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
That is Matt Campbell at his press conference this morning. A lot to unpack there. I always love when people say he didn't say anything. He said a lot. It's like you just don't listen very well. Right? Darius Dixon's been out. He's back out there. Says a lot. Jeremiah Cooper, been out. He's taking some reps out there. Says a lot. Carson Hansen, taking some reps out there now. Getting back. Right? If you listen to what he says, he's telling you what's going on. He does. Right? I don't really know sometimes what people expect somebody to say. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what you're expected to say. I guess you want, I guess there's some people that want like a blunt explanation about what an injury is for a specific player, and you're not going to do that. First of all, there are HIPAA laws, so you can't do it, right? But there's nothing season-ending right now. And so it's a question of getting guys back. Like, Rapp was out there today. Hansen was out there today. Dixon was out there today. Cooper was out there today. I think Eskelson was out there for a little bit today, too. They were all out there today. And So, again, I always love when these guys don't say anything. There's a real skill to it. And if you listen, they're telling you what's going on. What is that? Well, what are we doing now? Don Fisher. What is this? A salute to Don. Oh, very nice. Yeah, Don's getting a lot of justified salutes. Guy announced 3 Indiana basketball national titles in 76, 81, and 87, and now a football national championship in 2025-26. What, 53, 54 years now? Unbelievable. They sent me a text about a salute to Don Fisher. Now, the Indiana Historical Society. Wow. Must be nice to be beloved. Must be very nice to be beloved. And Don is beloved. And then they asked me to do something for Gary Dolphin at Iowa. He's heading into his 30th season of Iowa football. So they want to do he doesn't know we're doing it. And Gary doesn't listen to the show, I can say it. So they wanted each of us to put like 20 seconds together as a salute to Gary. So I did mine on Saturday. And I think, hey, Gary is, and I even used the word beloved. I said, in beloved, he's beloved in Iowa, right? Don is beloved in Indiana. I mean, these guys, they've earned it. Must be nice to be beloved. Must be very nice. Because they've earned it. So, boy. But the press conference, like he listed players that have had camps. Well, listen to the names that he listed. Those are the guys that are going to be playing. I think he listed nearly 30 guys. When he was asked about MVP so far, well, that's good. What do you want him to do, list 2 guys and everybody else you're wondering about? Oh, man. I always love it. Well, they haven't said anything. Well, you didn't listen. I don't know what you're listening for. Is there something I'm missing that you're listening for? Because you have to remember, I always find that interesting when they say a coach doesn't say anything, or it's just, now there's certain things that a coach speak. We know that. You can hear the mumbo jumbo a mile away on stuff. Okay, I got it. All right, because I'll sit there, I'll be the same as you. But like, for example, when he's talking about the team, I'm there at every practice. So my perspective is, yep, yeah, that makes sense. Yep, that's what's happening. Yep, that's what's happening. I don't know. It's the 49ers owner is in some trouble. So Toronto Maple Leafs, by the way, named their new play-by-play guy today, and Joe Bowen. What they did was they took the Toronto Marlies AHL play-by-play guy and they moved him up. That's good. That's the way it should be. I think that's the way it should be. Todd Crocker, good for him. That's great. That's good. That's good. Hey, I like to see people move up like that. So, and deserves it. We're going to have Neil Coulon on the next half hour. Talk with him about the NFL and what he saw in the second preseason game, especially the Will Howard, Drew Aller experience against the Jets. I mean, Will Howard did do something in that game that did not happen in a regular season game for the Jets. The Jets not Not only got one, but got 2 interceptions. After having none in regular season games last year. But again, the Big Ten is going to put out something. Hey, look, if you've been in a pro camp, I'm sorry. And you have signed a pro contract, we're sorry. You're not allowed back in a Big Ten team. And the Big Ten is doing that evidently today. I also thought, when you listen to what Matt was talking about, the encouraging part was what he said about the pass rushers. And you could see it in the practice on that's me, Powell. But what he said about the pass rush was Max Glanville, Ken Eziadu, Ron Comedy, Caleb Bacon, Alex McPherson. That's a big plus because Penn State has been for decades now so strong at the pass rush and getting people off the edge. All right, half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Neil Coulong next on News Radio 1070 WKOK.